to our little fruit tree planting guide. Welcome to the fruit tree section. It's my favorite part of the nursery. We're going to go over some basics for planting. Your soil, one of two options. We've got planting mix, which is recommended when you've already got pretty decent soil. It's been amended if you take it and you take a handful of soil, add a little water. It's not going to make a clay ball. It's going to crumble apart a little bit. That is going to be average soil. So you're going to get planting mix, you've got average soil. If you don't have that and you take a handful, it's really hard to get out of the ground. You make your ball, you add some water, and it's a clay ball that you could like make pottery out of. You're going to want to amend it with this one instead. The soil building conditioner is specifically made to break apart clay soils and to keep them from becoming clay again. So once you've figured out what soil you're going to use, whether it's the soil building conditioner or it's the planting mix, you're going to want to dig your hole. Your hole should be 2 times as wide as the container that the tree comes in. And you're going to want it to be about the same depth. This is specifically for deciduous fruit trees that we're talking about here. And the same depth, when you make your hole, it should be a square. You actually don't want to have a round hole. You want to have corners. If you have a round hole, the roots will hit the wall and it'll just go in a circle. If you have corners, it'll hit the wall, it'll hit the corner, and it'll be more likely to force its way through the corner. Also, you want your walls to be jagged. So you want some kind of tool with either your hands or a pronged tool and you're gonna rough the walls up. If it's completely smooth, it kind of turns into a clay soup pot. If it's rough, the roots have more access to get out, and also you're going to have more water penetration leaving the otherwise soup pot hole. So square hole, always ideal. So you dig your square hole, you're going to be mixing in multiple ingredients, and how many ingredients you dig in is going to be dependent on your personal preference and what kind of soil you have. The bare bones minimum that I always recommend is going to be a 50-50 mix of the original soil coming out of the hole. You're going to save that. You're not just going to use a bagged product. If you do, it's building a false oasis. So it'll be half planting mix or soil building conditioner, and the other half will be the soil that came out of the hole. If you have an older tree, I recommend actually just using an all-purpose. It's just a 4-4-4, so even nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. You're just telling it, do what you would do normally, but do it better and faster. Again, you would still do it every 2 to 3 months, and it'll be spring, summer, and fall. I usually do mine around February, March in that window, and then May, June, and then September, October is your 3 different time frames. Again, it would be about 2 cups at planting, but depending on how big your tree is, you might use less or more. Azomite is probably the #1 product I recommend whenever people ask me about fruit trees. It is something my mother originally recommended to me and my father, and then I learned about it in college and I was like, now I understand. It has about 15 different micronutrients, so it's got things like iron, magnesium, calcium, zinc, all kinds of goodies that the tree will need in small doses to make sure that it has all the proteins and building blocks to function correctly. And because our soil around here is often, it's been scraped, it's been moved around, it's been filled in, construction has happened, you don't know what it has. So this is kind of just making sure you have what you need at the starting so the tree doesn't have a deficiency later. Also, it's going to make you have more fruit and tastier fruit and larger fruit. So that's a bonus. Planting, this is going to be about 2 cups per tree. If you're doing an area, the 2 cups is kind of thinking for a 10 by 10 space, which is about what a tree would take up. So it's about 2 cups for every 100 square feet if you were spreading it out in a larger area. But in general, 2 cups at planting mixed in. Last and important ingredient is going to be bone meal. Bone meal is just bones. This is a chicken bone meal primarily, and it's very high in phosphorus. Phosphorus does the job of helping your roots develop stronger and faster, and it'll help your tree anchor. faster. It won't fall over as much potentially. The root system is strong, the tree will be stronger, faster. Later, if you have extra phosphorus in the soil, you have extra in this bag, you can use it for other plants to help them at planting. You can also use it for pushing flower and fruit production because it relates to roots, buds, flowers, and fruit. This is also going to be around 2 cups at planting time, or 2 cups, like in the hole, or be 2 cups for every 100 square feet. All of your ingredients. You've got your soil that's coming from the bag, you've got your soil that's coming from the hole, you mix that into your square hole, you add your goodies, whether it's just citrus and fruit tree fertilizer or all-purpose, or if you're adding the extras like the azomite and the bone meal. I recommend all of them if you want to have it be easier in the long run. So take all those goodies, you mix it in for the whole depth of the soil. Mix it up really proper. As you're mixing it, have water being added to your hole. Make sure it's nice and moist. Sometimes when you buy a bag of soil and it's been sitting out for a few months, it becomes hydrophobic and it's really dry. So you want to make sure it's taking in that moisture from the beginning. Once you've got it all mixed in, make a little spot for your root ball. And when you plant it, what are you going to do? Kind of just turn it, fit it, use a rubber mallet. Once you've gotten it nice and loose, put it at an angle, pull it down at the bottom. Having a helper is good for this part. Pull it right out, and you would set it directly into your hole. If your roots look like this, and they're covering about 50% of the root wall, you don't need to loosen them. If they're really thick at the bottom, you might want to take some kind of pronged tool and loosen them up a bit. Your hands might not be enough. Just loosen it so that it's not making a wall of roots that it has to burst through. So this will go in your hole, all your soil up around it, and you want it to be a little bit higher than your existing root ball. Once your tree is ready to go in the hole, I usually will put a little bit of soil back in the bottom so that if this would be ground level here, I actually want to have my tree be a little bit raised, about 20%, so that when that nice fluffy hole of soil settles and compresses, you don't have your soil level here with a dip going down towards the root ball that you've planted. So you want your root ball to be elevated about 20%. So you'll put a little bit of that soil on the bottom, put your root ball, settle it all around it, and you're going to put extra soil on top. So it's like an exaggerated shoulders around your tree in like a donut shape. Because it's going to settle and it's going to get flat. And then on top of that, you're going to put mulch. Mulch can be bark, mulch can be rock. You want 2 to 4 inches thick, and you want to leave a gap between the trunk and the mulch. It's about pretty much the thickness of your hand, so about 2-3 inches. You want to have a little gap so that the mulch is not touching the trunk directly, because that can cause rot. That can cause an excess of moisture, and it can rot. So once you've got that mulch on top, you water everything in real thorough. Watering for this plant is going to change over time. Watering at planting should be double the volume of the container that it came in. This is a 5-gallon container. It needs 10 gallons of water every time you water it. Depending on the time of year, the watering frequency is going to be different. Right now we're in fall. Fall is the best time to plant because the soil is warmer than the air, and it's not going to dry out as quickly. The moisture stays in the soil longer. So right now, if I was planting this lovely little tree, I would water at planting 10 gallons, and then I would probably, for the first week or 2, water weekly, but then after that, I would do a moisture check every time, and I would expect to only be watering maybe every 2 weeks for the rest of fall. Moisture check would be, take my finger, put it down in the hole within the realm of the root ball, whether in the root ball or at the edge of it, down a whole finger length deep, pull it back up. Do I have any moisture clinging to my finger? If there is, it does not need to be watered. If you don't feel like risking splinters, you don't want to get your hands dirty, I don't always want to get my hands dirty, I will use a chopstick, a wooden disposable chopstick, and I will push the whole thing down into the soil. I will walk away for 5-10 minutes, come back, pull it up. If there's moisture in the soil, the chopstick will be darker. And if it's darker, it's not time to water. Once these trees go dormant, these are deciduous fruit trees, it's not going to need to be watered. The only reason it would need to be watered is if we have a drought winter and there is no rain, or if we're having really light rains that only last for a day and it's really light, then you might need to water every 2 months, maybe like twice during winter. But otherwise, winter rain is enough. So now that you know what to do at planting, you will want to plan ahead for future care on this tree. Fruit trees aren't easy. Some of them are really easy, but they all have needs. This peach tree here, probably one of the neediest of the bunch, but once you know how to take care of it, you're gonna spend less than a couple hours a year on this tree. So things that it'll need, first off, water will need to change depending on the season. Fall and spring, tree is gonna need it probably like every 2 weeks. You're gonna be doing moisture checks to make sure it's not already wet before you water. In winter, no water. In summer, for a peach, it's gonna be weekly. They have shallow root systems and they have wide root systems, but it's not a drought tolerant plant. Peaches and nectarines are some of the few fruit trees that can't be drought tolerant. And so you have to check the moisture needs for each category of tree that you have. If you're planting new trees, you'll want to make sure that you group them together to make your life easier. Peaches, nectarines, and pomegranates and edible vines are all going to need a little more frequent watering. Everything else is pretty much drought tolerant. So while peaches and nectarines are going to need frequent watering in comparison for the rest of their lives, they are not a drought tolerant plant. They'll always need weekly watering in summer. If you have an apple or a persimmon or a citrus, jujubes, plums, apricots, everything else pretty much, their watering needs will change as the years go by. So year 1 in summer, you might need water once a week, but year 2 in summer, it'll be every 2 weeks. Year 3 in summer, every 3 weeks. Year 4 in summer, you're at once a month. How much water will also change. So at the beginning, we're doing the double container volume. So let's just say we're starting with that 10-gallon requirement. Year 2, at every 2 weeks, it'll be more like 15 gallons of water. Year 3, year 4, maybe more like 20. If you're not sure how much, you look at the trunk down within 6 inches of the ground. How many inches wide is the diameter? 1 inch equals 10 gallons. You're going to be watering it within the drip zone. The drip zone is, you take the canopy at the edges of the foliage and go down in a straight line. This is the area I'm watering, here. If my canopy is out here, I'm watering out here. And I'm not emphasizing as much water near the trunk. So you have to know what the water is once the tree is older.